You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast, episode number 207. I think it's important to do great work. Kyra Sedgwick.
Broadcasting from a dark, windowless room in Hollywood when we really should be working on that next draft. It's the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast, showing you the craft and business of screenwriting while teaching you how to make your screenplay bulletproof. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome to another episode of the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Now, today's show is sponsored by Bulletproof Script Coverage. Now, unlike other script coverage services, Bulletproof Script Coverage actually focuses on the kind of project you are and the goals of the project you are. So we actually break it down by three categories: micro budget, indie film market, and studio film. There's no reason to get coverage from a reader that's used to reading tentpole movies when your movie's going to be done for $100,000. And we wanted to focus on that at Bulletproof Script Coverage. Our readers have worked with Marvel Studios, CAA, WME, NBC, HBO, Disney, Scott Free, Warner Brothers, The Blacklist, and many, many more. So if you need your screenplay or TV script covered by professional readers, head on over to covermyscreenplay.com. Today's show is also sponsored by screenwriting software Arc Studio. Now, Arc Studio is easy to use, rock solid, and covers the whole flow: structure, writing, rewriting, exchanging notes with partners, and so much more. It's also great for collaboration and writers' rooms. For example, has been used in the writers' room of Arcane, the hit Netflix show. Now, if you want to check this out for free, all you got to do is go to arcstudiopro.com and sign up. But because you are listening to this episode, you're going to get $30 off all of their paid plans. So check out arcstudiopro.com/bulletproof to see why they are taking Hollywood by storm. That's arcstudiopro.com/bulletproof. Well, guys, we are kicking off our Tribeca Film Festival coverage with an amazing guest. We have the incomparable Kyra Sedgwick. Now, many of you know Kyra as an amazing actress and producer, but she's also been directing for many, many years on television, working on shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Grace and Frankie. But her first narrative feature film is called SPACE ODDITY, and it is in the Tribeca Film Festival. I got a chance to see it, and it is really, really fantastic. It has an amazing cast, including her incomparable husband, Kevin Bacon, and amazing other actors as well. And Kyra and I talk about what it's like being in the business, her working as an actress, what it's like being a female director, how she approaches the craft, what she learned from amazing directors that she worked with like Cameron Crowe and Oliver Stone, and so much more. So without any further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Kyra Sedgwick. I'd like to welcome to the show, Kyra Sedgwick. How you doing, Kyra?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been a fan of yours since my days of the video store, where I was moving pirates around and
Yes, pirates. That was amazing. I love that. I love that.
So, I mean, you've had an amazing career and you've worked with some remarkable people. But before we get into all of that, and especially your new film, which I got a chance to see, which I loved, SPACE ODDITY. How did you get started, and why did you want to get started in this insane business?
Oh, as an actor?
Yes.
Yeah, you know what? I fell in love at 12. I did a play in 8th grade, Fiddler on the Roof, and I played Seidel and matchmaker, let's match. I mean, forget it. That was it. I mean, truly, like, I was not a happy kid. I had a very challenging childhood and home life, and that was like swoosh. I mean, that was it. Like, I knew this was where I felt. I didn't even have the words for it at the time, but I remember saying, I feel like my soul has left my body and it's dancing around the stage. And then, like, to this day, I feel like that is such a great that's such a great explanation of the way that description of the way that I felt, and how it's so interesting to think that as I kept acting, forever, and it became a vocation, and it became something I have to be good at. And then after success, and I was supposed to be good, and then I was supposed to be better. And then that it sort of lost that initial like love story that brought me in it in the beginning. And then subsequently, like, falling in love with directing in that same way. It's like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is what I've been supposed to be, I've been training for since I was 16, because I started working professionally when I was 16. So I knew I wanted to be an actor at 12. I worked really hard up until 16. And then I, got my first gig, and that was really it.
Now, what was it like your first day walking on the set of your first professional, I'm going to get paid to act day?
Oh, on the day that I was going to get paid to act. God, I had like that stupid beginner's like ego about it. Like, I mean, I knew I was very clear that being an actor, because I was trained well, is a service position, because it really is. I mean, it may later become something else when you become more powerful and people actually care about what you think. But initially, like, you're there to serve, you're there to serve the writer most of all, and then serve the director. And so I think I felt incredibly stoked, but I also felt like, of course I'm doing this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I really did know that at 12. I mean, like, I wasn't going to take no for an answer. Although I thought, if I try this for 6 years, try to get a job for 6 years, and it doesn't pan out, I'm going to have to do something else. But I was going to give it a good 6 years.
6 years. That's not a bad amount of time. Some people get to Hollywood, I'm going to give it a good year. I'm like, man.
Yeah, no. Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a little longer than that. Now, one of my favorite films of yours, you have so many that I've loved of yours, from Singles and so many others, but Phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, when you were on that set and you were working with John Travolta, and there's some magic about that movie, and your performance opposite of John was so riveting. You balanced his performance as a character so well. Mm-hmm. What was it like on set when you read that story for the first time?
Yeah, I really liked the story. It was funny. I remember I really liked the story. And I also got offered simultaneously like a big horror movie. I can't tell you what it was, so I don't remember. But I remember John Turteltaub, being like, but I want you to be in my movie. And and I loved the movie and I loved the part. The other one was sort of my movie, albeit it was a horror movie, but, of course I was going to do Phenomenon. I knew it was something special when I went to meet with John Travolta for the first time, and his heart is just so big. Like, his heart is so big. I know, maybe you don't know him or people don't know that about him, but it's like, he's so porous and he's so vulnerable, and like, his strength is in his vulnerability. There was just something, and he was so in love with this story, and so attached, so committed to making it, real, and having it, have so much integrity. He has so much integrity, and it's about this sort of fantastical thing that happens, but he was so committed to making it grounded. Mm-hmm. Also, John Turteltaub is like one of the funniest people on the planet, and he also has a big heart and loves really big. And so I felt like I'd really be taken care of. And I also felt the story would be taken care of. And I loved it. I absolutely loved working on that piece. And my daughter was 2 at the time. And Kevin had Travis and I had Sosie, and she would come to the set a lot. John Turteltaub was so in love with her. I don't know. It was just like a very loving place. And
like a family.
Yeah, it really was. And that doesn't always happen, especially not with a monumental star like that. I mean, that was insane. But also, we all really were committed. We knew we had something special, and we wanted to we wanted to make it great. And he did. They did. We did.
It's a phenomenal, no pun intended, really wonderful, really, really fun movie. Now, after working on set for so many years and during your career, what made you say, I think I want to get behind the camera. I want to get behind the lens.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I've always, I always have an opinion. So I think that, it was my husband, my beloved husband, who was like, honey, you really should think about directing. You really should think about directing. And I was always like, I was terrified of the concept because I thought I wouldn't be, I'd work with great directors, and then I'd work with not great directors who will never be great. You know what I mean? And it's like very clear, the vast cavernous, difference between the two things, and so I was afraid I was going to be, the latter. And I didn't want that crushing blow to my ego, frankly. And I didn't see it a lot, here's the truth of it, right? Is like, as a woman, started in, acting professionally in 1981, like I didn't see a lot of women,
right,
people with a vagina directing, and it was like, when you don't see it, you don't know that you can dream it or be it. Right. So, but having said that, it was my husband who was like, kind of goosing me along. And then, I'd been producing since I was 27. I did my first movie, when I was 27 that I produced, and we got Helen Mirren, and I was in it, and Sandra Bullock was in it, and Marissa Tomei. It was amazing. And it was, that was Loverboy. That was my second thing. My first thing was Losing Chase with Helen. And in any case, so I had like balls around that. Like I had chutzpah about, I'm going to produce because I know this is a good script and I know actors are going to like it. And I think I'll get a good director. But, directing just seems so terrifying to me and so much responsibility. But then I had this book that I had bought in 2007 called Story of a Girl. And we had hired a female writer director to write the script. And we tried to get it made for like 10 years. And, to quote Glenn Close, I wonder why it didn't get made. Maybe because it has girl in the title. But, it took a really long time to get it made.
Right.
And it was finally time to get it made. I actually walked into Lifetime to talk to them about something else. And, they said, do you have a passion project? And I was like, yeah, I have a passion project. It's called Story of a Girl, and I want to direct it. And then I was like, who said that? Who said that? I mean, literally, I was like, say what? Did that just come out of my mouth? And then they read it. And like the next day, we're like, we absolutely love this. And we'll make it for a little bit of money, not a lot of money. And I was like, I'm up for that. So, it was beyond my wildest dreams. I like I said, I felt like I was in my element. I didn't know until the first day of directing, of actually being on set, that I was in my element. Prep was terrifying for me. Even though I had been in my head really prepping for this movie for 10 years, I was terrified, rightly so, I think. Like, can I do it? I got my husband there going, of course you can do it. I got these actors who are looking at me like, of course, I think you can do it. Can you? But and then literally the first take of the first rehearsal of the first scene, the first blocking of the first scene, I was like, I've got this, and it was this very like, not, just this ease and this flow. I felt very in the flow. It felt very easy. Subsequently, I think it's become harder as, again, like that sort of that little girl who's like, my soul is, dancing around. It's like, after a while, your ego does come in and start going like, you really know what you're doing? I don't know. You know what I'm doing. And, and starts to doubt you and compare and despair and all that stuff. But like in that show, I was like, I've got this. And then we were like, I can remember one day we showed up on set. There was one day that we had all outside stuff on location and it couldn't rain. And of course it was Vancouver and it was pouring. And I remember everyone was freaking out. And I was like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I don't know where I got that kind of like trust and confidence and faith that like, no matter what, we're going to figure something out. It was amazing. It was an amazing day. We did figure a lot of stuff out. But the thing is that being so much, having, I've spent so many times on set, so much time on set. I know what it's like when it feels like a director has the reins and when they don't. And how awful and scary it feels like when they don't have the reins and they don't have control. And so that was something that I wanted to emulate, but it came pretty easily for me. And also, I had been prepping this movie in my head for 10 years and had been prepping it on location for, 6 weeks. So anyway, I don't know if I even answered.
No, you answered the question, and I love the imposter syndrome that came in because
of course
everybody has it, and I always like bringing that up on the show because a lot of young filmmakers and young screenwriters and even young actors who are listening, they think that you've made it at a certain point, you don't have that anymore. Henry Fonda was throwing up right before he went on stage every night, and he was Henry Fonda. So. Right. You said that you've worked with great directors and you know what great directors are, and you've worked with not so great directors, and what is the difference from an actor's perspective?
Well, I think that oh boy, that's really hard because a director can come over and give you a good note and still it doesn't come together well. It doesn't cut together well. Yeah,
because there could be a performance director who doesn't understand the craft of telling a visual story, or the visuals. It's all visuals, and you're just movable props at that point.
Yeah. I think it's really, but I can tell you the difference between a director who has really prepared and really has a point of view and really has a vision and also can communicate it. That's an awful lot to ask in one, but it feels so good. Then we're all making the same movie and we're all, again, in the flow and in the serving the piece as a whole that has a very strong idea and a very strong vision. To me, that's a good director.
Now, what is some of the biggest lessons you took away from working with some of the legendary directors have you worked with over the years?
Is that everybody does it differently. It's really interesting. Some people are, super, super hyper focused on detail. And some people are like, just do it again. Like Kelly Fremont Craig on Edge of 17, just to pick someone really recent, and a female was very specific, very, very, very specific. Whereas Oliver Stone was do it again. Or James Ivory, was it was already painted. The movie was painted. You were just the brushstrokes and he was the hand doing the brushstrokes. So it was it was so interesting because he already had it so much in his head that no matter what you brought to the table, he would always direct you back into that version that he had in his head. It was so, and I remember looking at Richard, oh God, that great actor. I'm forgetting his name. It wasn't Paul Newman, obviously. And just going is it just me or has he already painted the picture? And the guy's he's already painted the picture. Robert Sean Leonard, he's already painted the picture. And I was so what are we even doing here? He's amazing,
It's really interesting because I understand what you mean by that, because his movies were so crafted and they were they were literally moving works of art. It looks like you could hang every frame you could hang somewhere in a museum. But I was always wondering about how he worked with actors, because some actors, I've had Oliver on the show and he's Oliver. He's Oliver. And he seems to kind of just do it again, and he flows with it. But when you have a director that flows with it like that, there's such confidence and they just understand the craft so much that they're not afraid of what you might bring that might be different. And I'm not saying that James is like that, but James it seemed that he just had such a clear idea that anything that varied out of that box, he just no, this is what I'm doing, and you're just a paintbrush. It's fascinating to me. As an actor, that must have been extremely frustrating because you like to obviously you bring something to the table, right?
It was, and then I saw the movie and it was so fucking amazing that I was just clearly I know nothing. But the other thing though, that he cast really well. He knew and I was just listening to Paul Thomas Anderson talking about casting really well, and it's you cast really well. You really have to trust your actors to bring something special. And, and I don't know, I can really see it from both sides. Again, being an actor, I can totally see it from both sides.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Because it's like, on the one hand, he cast the perfect people, but he also like kept them in a very strange, a very like tight little box. But then someone like Paul Thomas Anderson like casts really well, and then just goes like, do it again and try it again and try something different. It really, I think it so much depends upon how much time you have. It's like, you can go like, let's do it again. I don't think I have it yet, but like, let's do it again. I won't give any direction. But if you only have like 4 takes that until you have to move on, like you have to note people more, and it might make people feel more uptight. But the truth is like, then you hope the director has a plan of like, I know I got this piece in this scene, this piece in this piece in this beginning of the scene.
Coverage.
Now I just need the middle, and now but I got the end. Let's just do that little,
Or you could do the Kubrick and just shoot. And
exactly.
But he also, a lot of people don't understand that Kubrick shot with 13 crew members, so he had days and weeks and months and on Eyes Wide Shut. How long did he have? Like almost a year. I think it's the longest shooting movie in history. I think it was according, because he just locked up Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman for a year.
I know. It's so funny. It's like, I was thinking, I made my movie in 21 days, and I heard Paul Thomas Anderson, who I think like made one of the greatest movies. I mean, he's beyond, and I was so in love with Licorice Pizza, and he was like, I had 65 days to shoot. And I was like, 65? Anyone can make a good movie in 65. I actually heard myself saying that. I can't believe I said it, but I was like, wait a minute. No. Anyway, but it's true. It's like, I think it's more fun for the actors when you have more time and you can be more loosey. I think it is more fun for the actors.
Now, how do you approach directing actors, hence being one for so long?
Yeah. How do I, everyone's different. I think, first of all, making actors or holding a space that feels safe for them is so key. Like, and that starts from like the first conversation you have with them of like, what do you need? Like, what can I do? But also just making a safe place, because actors, we are so vulnerable. It is so terrifying, having this giant piece of machinery looking at you. I mean, I don't know. I just think that every actor is, ripping themselves open and like, leaving a piece of their soul on the floor for you. So like, you better honor what that is. And I feel like I know that intrinsically. That's not something I had to learn. That's something that I, really, really deeply understand. So I think that's like first and foremost super important, because I think that people give you better if they feel safe. And I think that, I've worked with a lot of green actors in my time, and I think that it's about specificity, and, using all the tools in your toolbox as a director, and trying not to, to give unactionable notes, like just be faster, just be funnier, that kind of shit is like not, I mean, I really try not to do that unless an actor's just like, you mean faster, right? And I'm like, yeah, actually, that's what I meant.
Faster, more intense.
Sometimes I definitely do like pace or whatever, but like people need different things. Some people like, are going to nail it on the first or second take. Like Kevin's going to nail it on the first or second take. It's not going to be a warm up. We better be ready, Whereas some of the younger actors, it's like they needed a warm up, and some of them needed a warm up in the beginning of the movie, but not towards the end of the movie, towards the end of the shoot. Like I've had like a front row seat to see actors grow within a movie. Like it's incredible, and then so everyone needs something different. Some people, and sometimes, you need to be pushed, just do it again. And then they start like questioning themselves to death. And it's like, no more questions. You've got to trust me. Like go again, just do it again. Stop watching yourself. Because a lot of time the actors are watching themselves, and it's like, I'm watching you. Try not to watch yourself. Like keep going.
So when actors are in the scene, when I've worked with actors before, sometimes they get into their own head.
Yes.
And then once they're in their own head, they're out of the moment.
Yes.
and they're thinking about their acting. And then now that's a bad performance. You're not reacting. You're not in the moment.
Right.
What do you do to knock them out of that? Because it happens all the times.
I slapped them really hard across the face. No,
Not so much in these days. 70s, you might have gotten away with that. Not so much now.
Honestly, I think honestly, sometimes you take them aside and like, hey, what do you need? And be like that loving, like mama bear. And sometimes it's like, stop doing that, and you've got to trust me. Stop it. Like, I think one of Alex's, one of Kyle's greatest performances was when he was feeling the most self-loathing. And like, I could see it in him, because I know that feeling of like, I suck so bad. And it's like, I just made him do it again and again and again. And it's like, it's some of the stuff that we use the most in the movie, and it's the most vulnerable. And I just tried to like not give him time to be in his head because we didn't have the time. So in a way that was a gift, right? Like we all can't indulge this. Like, I'm not going to let you indulge it because I don't think it's good for you, but we all can't indulge this. So let's just keep going. And again. And he never told me he hated me for it, but really, truly, it's the stuff that's like interstitially in the movie. It's the stuff when he's looking in the mirror, and we use it over and over and over again in the movie because it helped. It did something for us that we didn't even know we needed. Moments where we were just quiet and landing with Alex and seeing him make a decision to do something different. But for those of you who haven't seen the movie, it won't mean anything, but the point being that, when he was at his least trusting, and I think that's also the thing that I can speak to as an actor and tell actors, sometimes when it feels the worst, it's the best. And you see, we don't know as actors, we think we know it wasn't good. I always know, but we really don't. We really don't. And I can reflect that back to them, It just because it was good for you doesn't mean it was good for the audience. Just because you really cried doesn't mean that you made the audience cry.
It's interesting because when you start listening of stories of like David Fincher or Stanley Kubrick, where they do 70, 80, 90.
Yeah, I'm not that. I don't think I'll ever be that person, even if I had the time.
Right, exactly. But I kind of understand the mentality behind it because you're breaking down the actor's mind to the point where they can't think anymore because they've done it so much, and that's where the magic happens in their process.
Yeah.
But I believe if you hire a good actor, they should get there faster.
Exactly. It's so funny because I worked with Cameron Crowe, obviously.
Yeah.
I worked with him. And dude, that guy did like 45 takes of everything. And every single actor at one point, looked at themselves and went, I must be the worst actor on the planet. And it was so funny because we all felt like I talked to Bridget Fonda and I was like, I know he probably doesn't do it to you, but he makes me do like 40 takes. She's like, are you kidding? He always makes you do 40 takes. But she didn't have that like self-loathing that I was born with. So, so she didn't take it so personally, but it's so funny because he would come the next day. I remember this vividly. I don't know if you remember the movie, but there's her first scene. I think it's the beginning of the movie. And she's doing the garage door clicker. Mm-hmm, and she has a little like a couple of paragraphs, and then she clicks the garage. He honestly 38 takes. And the other thing is that as I'm doing more and more takes, I can feel Cameron spiraling too and being scared that it's terrible. So like I didn't think it wasn't just me making that up. Like he actually, and then he would come back the next day and go, dude, had it on like the third take. Sorry.
But that was like his second movie. That was like his second movie.
But then the next day, I'd be like, okay, cool. So he's not going to make us do so many takes. Same thing. And then he'd be like, dude.
Fourth take.
Second take. I was just like, oh, and then it never changed. So I just think that's him, and he's a great, amazing director. His movies are incredible.
And that was during the time of film where that cost every single time. It wasn't a hard try.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that because again, that's the time of my video store days. Yes. Like 87 to 92, 93, I was working in a video store. So Singles, Say Anything, Pirates, all that time was during those. I'm deadly in Trivia Pursuit in that time period.
Awesome.
So I wanted to ask you too, as an actor, what is the biggest misconception that people have about the process? Because actors from the outside, especially young directors.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
It looks like an alien, like how you work on the process, and every actor's different, every method and all that stuff. But generally speaking, what do you think is the biggest misconception that directors or just people in general have about the process of being an actor on set?
That's a really good question. I mean, off the top of my head, that it's easy, that people think it's easy.
Right. Just do it. It's he moved the light. Why can't you just hit the mark and do the?
Yeah. I mean, my brother-in-law is an eye surgeon, and he's like, what you do is so hard. Are you freaking kidding me? And bless his heart, like he does, big work, and it's amazing and it's incredible. If I stuck a camera in front of him, he would be like, he would understand very quickly how hard it is, So I think that it's hard is a misconception. I think that a lot of people, and also understandably, it's like, actors are sort of treated like gods sometimes eventually. And that's like, really, you're not curing cancer. And it's really hard, so I think that that's one of the things. And again, I just keep coming back to this concept of like, it's really vulnerable. It's really scary.
It's so vulnerable.
It is. It's so vulnerable. It's like most of us walk around with like, we've got a shield on all the time. I mean, one way or the other, it's like, there's a front, there's something going on that like makes me safe in the world. And you're really stripping that away ultimately, I think, when you're in front of a camera, for me, or in front of an audience.
But if you only feel comfortable, because if you don't feel comfortable, from my experience, when you're an actor and you don't feel comfortable, you'll protect yourself, and that's when problems occur on set. So that's what happens. So that's why safe space is so important for a director to come in. Now, as a seasoned actor like yourself, you can pretty much smell it on day one. How long does it take you before you know, oh God, this director has no idea what they're doing. Oh, what did I sign up for? I'm gonna have to carry this myself. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, I think really early on. Yeah, for sure. Especially at this age. I mean, my God,
Day one, you'll go, mm-mm. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also give people a lot of room, I mean, I'm like, okay, this is a new set. Like everyone's getting their sea legs, especially on a movie. Like on a TV show, it's a little bit different because 3/4 of the people are already hired and are doing all the work all over the, at the same time. But like a movie or the beginning of a series or something like that, everyone is figuring it out and figuring out the flow, and crews are unmerged, and so I think that, that is I definitely try to give people the benefit of the doubt for a while. I may have a spidey sense, quickly and go like, oh, that's a little red flaggy, but yeah, it's okay. I can tuck that into the back of my head for, a minute, and then if days go by and it's just a clusterfuck, then it's just a clusterfuck, and and you're like, okay, I just have to protect me, and my performance as much as possible.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen and you can kind of see when you see a movie and you see performances come out and you're like, she's always so good in that, or he's always so good. What happened here? And then you hear the stories of behind the scenes. You're like, oh, they were just protecting themselves. They were just trying to survive the shoot, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, is there something that you wish someone would have told you at the beginning of your career about like, hey, keep an eye out for this, or this is not the way it is?
It's another good question. Gosh. I don't know. I was born and raised in New York, so I had a lot of street smoke.
I can tell.
Like for some people, and I had 2 older brothers, so I wasn't going to take a whole lot of shit. Like I'd take some, but like, I remember
you were prepped.
And like I remember auditioning for Adrian Lyne for Flashdance, believe it or not.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and I had to, I'd go in there and I started the scene. And the phone rang, and he went to go pick it up, and I was like, "You're not going to pick that up, are you?" And I literally was like, a baby actor, I was like, I don't know, 17 or something like that. And I was like, you're not going to pick that up, are you? He looked at me like, wow, like he couldn't believe, that I had, just like, I think that, I think that you have value. I think telling an actor, it's interesting because I think that on the one hand, you want to say to young actors, like, you have value, your opinion matters. But I also think it's so important that actors know, and I somehow knew this intrinsically, that you are there to be of service. You really are there. I studied with teachers who were like, the play's the thing. You know what I mean? Like, you're not the thing, the play is the thing. So I think that that's important for actors to know, and you have value, right? Like, both of those things at the same time.
It's so interesting because you seem, as we're talking, you've obviously had a fantastic career thus far. It doesn't seem from the outside that you've fallen into any of these traps, these ego traps that you've actually mentioned, like, oh, this or that, or people think you're a god and things. How did you avoid that? Is it just your upbringing in being a New Yorker? Because I'm an East Coaster as well. So I feel you. We can smell our own. So what is it about that you didn't fall into those traps? And also your husband too, Kevin, didn't seem to fall into them either.
I think that, I think in some ways we have always been and always, valued being a workhorse actor and not like a star. You know what I mean? I think that I think that there's part of me that wished it had been easier for me. I know that one would look at me on the outside and go, God, you've had such a great career, but like, it's been hard, like many times hard, and like many years, not working, sometimes between jobs, like 2 years, 3 years. So like, I think that while I would have liked a softer, easier way, in a way, I feel like because it's been challenging, it has made me respect and value, being a workhorse actor that's like somebody who never had it too easy. I also will say that, like, I feel like for whatever reason, I'm like a good citizen. And I feel like it's important to be a good citizen in the world and to be a good citizen on a set and to like treat people well and treat people the way you want to be treated. And like, that kind of diva mentality, or thinking that you're better than anybody else, anybody, including the freaking, crafty man. If you think you're better than them, then like I just think that that'll end up biting you in the ass, and it's certainly not fun to be around. And it also, there's humility to being an actor. You have to be willing and open to learning about human beings. And I think that if you think you're somehow better than any human being, then you're not going to be, you don't have that humility to observe and to become that person and to represent that person on screen. Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world. And what you're saying is what everyone should strive for. Not everyone gets there, but everyone should strive for that. Just that I'm here. I'm here for the work. I'm glad to be working. I had the pleasure of working with Robert Forster years ago, and not to drop a name, but the reason I'm bringing
my friend,
the reason I'm bringing it up is that when I spoke to him after we worked together, he said, actors need to remember that there's this many actors and this many jobs,
right?
And you should be lucky if you're working to get up and be appreciative and grateful that you get to do what you love to do. And that's what a lot of actors don't understand. And I was like, wow, it was just he was like a sage. And when I worked with him, it was like a sage talking to me about acting. It was just like, oh. And also, by the way, when he walked on set, he was prepared in a way that he was so prepared in a way that I wasn't used to working, because actors I'd worked with, they're good actors and everything, but such an amazing, I was like, my God, he's walking in like I'm Quentin Tarantino. This is amazing. So it's so wonderful when you get to work with really great actors, because then you understand what a really great actor can do and bring to your project, where, like you're saying, green actors, they haven't gotten there yet. It takes them a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about Space Oddity. How did that come to life? By the way, I watched it, loved it. I thought it was wonderful. What an amazing cast, by the way. Oh, amazing cast.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We really got lucky.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
So Space Oddity is a script that was given to me. I think it was 2017, maybe even. I loved it. And my company, Big Swing, Valerie Sadler and I worked with the writer for about a year and a half. And then, the little old pandemic happened. And so we had to push a year. But I love the movie. I thought it had something to say. I thought it's everything that I love. It's about this family, and it's romantic, and it's funny, and it's sad, and it also has like some climate stuff in it, which I think is so critical right now and important for us as artists and storytellers to talk about. We got the money together literally like we were in prep when the last money came in. I mean, it was not easy. There was nothing easy about this. We had someone cast as Alex. He fell out like 3 weeks before we were supposed to start prep. And then the great gift of Kyle Allen, who's like going to be a huge star, came into our lives. And we had Madeline Brewer really early on the year before in like 2018. I guess we had her in 19. I'm not good with dates. And a lot of people cast, and then, lots of people came in at the last minute. And, it's one of those things where, we were bound and determined, like we were like not taking no for an answer. I'm making this movie. Like I will do everything I can and I become the engine of everything that I do, I find. And that's like a gift and a power of mine, but also it's like sort of the only way I know how to do it. Like literally in the middle of the pandemic, I was doing a sitcom. I was starring in a sitcom that only went one season called Call Your Mother. And by the way, call your mother, always call your mother. And I was like, I felt so helpless. Like I couldn't, like I was in LA, I couldn't do anything here. And this was before we even had our money, this was the summer before we ended up shooting it. But I was like, I knew I wanted to shoot in Rhode Island because right before March 5th, 2019, we went on a scout in Rhode Island. I knew they had a 30%, tax incentive. And I went on a scout with my producing partner, with Valerie. And we were like, this is the place. I found the town. I knew Wickford, Rhode Island was going to be where I wanted to shoot the town. And the town is an important part in, character in the movie. And then I was like, I have to find a flower farm. We didn't find one on that scout. And of course the world shut down. So I was in LA and I started looking up, flower farms on the computer. Didn't realize that it was the day before Valentine's Day. Cold called, Robin Hollow Farm, which was this, I found their website. I looked at their place. It looked beautiful. So I cold called them and said, hi, my name is Kyra Sedgwick and I'm going to make a movie in Rhode Island this summer. Didn't have the money, didn't have all the I was like, but, saying all this stuff. And I really love the look of your flower farm and any chance you might want to let us shoot on it. And she goes, and the wife who picked up the phone, who owned the flower farm with her husband, Mike, said, well, you are calling a flower farm the day before Valentine's Day. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I hate Valentine's Day. I always thought it was such a stupid holiday. And then I start going to this thing about Valentine's Day. I was like,
what are you doing?
I was sweating. I was so scared to call, but it was like magical. It was so magical because literally the next day, Mike Hutchinson, who owns Robin Hollow, got on the phone with me and my production designer, Michael. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his last name, but I'll remember it. And we called him and he was like, I did a show I did a gardening show with Martha Stewart. And so I know filmmaking. We were like, we couldn't believe how lucky we were. And he sent us a whole bunch of pictures of what the place looks like. when it's in full bloom. And we were like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And this sucker actually, this really nice guy wants to let us shoot there. And, we ended up shooting there. So it was like, it was amazing. A lot of luck, a lot of perseverance,
Wow.
and, great people supporting us. It takes a village. It takes more than a village. It takes, my God, it takes a planet.
A miracle. It takes a miracle.
It really takes a miracle. The idea that anything ever gets made. We got turned down by so many financiers. You have no Michael Fitzgerald. I'm so sorry. I had to look that up. Sure. My God, the brilliant Michael Fitzgerald. But there was a lot on that flower farm that is that flower farm. You could spend millions of dollars trying to get that look. And there it was, like point a camera. And there was a lot of work that Michael did, a lot of work, but it was a beautiful place to shoot.
Now, what you've directed a ton of television over the years. What lessons did you bring from television to and this is your first feature you directed, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Mm-hmm. So what were those lessons? Because television's a whole different beast than a narrative, a feature. So what lessons did you bring onto your indie film?
Well, I think that you learn so much doing television and different kinds of TV shows, like going from like Grace and Frankie to Ray Donovan and City on a Hill, and then, In the Dark. And I got to play in everyone else's playground and use everybody else's toys. And, I know it's only the beginning, and I have so much more to learn, but I knew so much more than I did when I did my first movie. So a lot about how to shoot things, about equipment, about
gear coverage,
right? Exactly. Or not coverage. I don't know. I'm kind of fast and loose with the coverage. We'll talk about that another time, but, trusting that, when you've got it, you're moving on. Like that is something that really came so easily to me from the beginning. But I think it's because of my acting background and knowing, like, especially all those years on The Closure, like we have this scene, we have this side anyway, or, and so that I think is such a huge, and also being under the gun time-wise is super important, being responsible for budget day, all that stuff. I know that some people never had that problem, but frankly, I love that problem. I'd love to have more days. Don't get me wrong, universe, like many more days and all that. But like, there is something to momentum on a crew and on a day that serves everybody. It serves cast, it serves crew, and it serves producer. It just serves the piece. So learning how to know when I got it. Also spending a lot of time. On all the shows I did, I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time on location blocking. And being an actor, it's great because I can do all the parts, but also I could bring in PAs and, other people to come in and be those actors for me. So I could set shots and stuff like that. Like all of that stuff. And also like being open to ideas and knowing when to go, like, okay, no more ideas. Like now it's me in my head. The other thing I've really learned about myself as a director, which I've learned through time, is that I have to hear my own voice first without hearing other people's input first. So that's why I like to go on set early. And I did it on everything from the first TV show I did. And usually they'll let you like walk the sets and stuff like that. And going onto the set and thinking, okay, this is how this scene should be. This is why it should be, it comes at this time in the show or the movie. It should be this kind of thing. I'm cutting from this to this. So I want to make sure that works and spending a lot of time with my own voice so that I can hear the input of other people, because it feels good for other people to feel seen and heard. That's also really important. And the other thing I know as an actor, especially on my show, The Closer, people like to hear you say, thank you so much for moving that light. Really appreciate your hustle, when you fix that sound thing for us. Thanks. And all that stuff is like it's so key to, just give people their due, man. And they will kill and die for you. Am I right? If you don't crew that you appreciate them and actors that you appreciate them, they're like, that's it. I'll do anything for you now. I mean, because
that and feeding them, and that and feeding them well. And feeding them well.
Totally. That's why I said craft service is not above you.
No, crafty can kill you. You put a bunch of sugary stuff on that table, and it's an 18-hour day. About 12 hours in, everyone's like sugar high, fights break out. I've seen it happen.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
It's insane. Now, as a director, we all go through that. We all understand the battle of making your day, making sure your film gets done, project gets finished on time. But there's always that one day.
Yeah.
There's that thing. Camera breaks, actor, car broke down. I'm losing the light. What was that day for you? What was the worst day? And how did you overcome that obstacle as a director?
Shit. I know that we had a bunch of days where we were supposed to shoot something and the lightning would start and everything would stop for 30 minutes and we had to come back, and I think that the thing to do is I remember, this was a really good day to talk about because me and the actors weren't gelling. It was like, they were mad at me, which for an actor director, it's like, what do you mean you don't like me? I'm one of the tribe. I mean, seriously, it's so, and I remember it first with an actor, and I wish I could say his name, but I'm not going to, on Grace and Frankie, because all the actors were like, we love you, Kyra, we love you. And I was like, they all love me because, I'm an actor. And of course they love me. And this one actor was like, I don't love you. I don't love you at all. In fact, I think you're annoying. And I was just like, say what? Broke my heart. I was telling him to do something he didn't want to do or whatever, But that day, not only did that happen where I felt like I was asking for something, I can be very exacting, like a very exacting director. Because I feel like I really know what I want. And if I'm not getting it and I'm losing the light, I'm sure I know I can get, I think I'm covering, but I'm not that good an actor sometimes. Hard to believe, I know, I'm only kidding. But anyway, so this day, it wasn't a good day anyway. We had so much to do. And it was that big emotional scene in The Fire for the Fireflies where he's like talking about his brother. And it's like, it's such a huge scene. It was such an important scene. It was such a beautiful location. And I was nothing was happening right. We were losing light before we could ever make this day. It was an insane day. We never could have made it anyway. But then, thank God, the heavens opened up and the lightning came and the rain and we had to shut down. And I remember going, you know what? Every time we hit those moments, it always ended up being a gift in the end. And so I had to start learning to just trust that, even though that was so hard for me because I like to stick to a plan, but of course, you have to let go of that plan. And also there is, you always think like, there's no way we're going to ever be able to come back to this location. And then something happens and you are able to go back. Like, again, it's like about right sizing things. Like, I know it feels like this is my movie, but it is just a movie. Like you're going to figure it out. Like, and no one needs to get hit by lightning and like, no one needs my bad attitude on that day or like my forcing a solution when like there's no solution to be had. The person's just not in the mood to take my direction today. You know what I mean? So it ended up being a blessing, but it was hard to go there.
Right, because as a director, directing is compromise every day, every moment. It's just compromise constantly.
Except for David Fincher, I really feel like that dude never. Honestly, when you hear him talk, he's like, I would never do that. I'm just an asshole, and I know it. Like I'm just really tough.
Oh no, he's
so open about it. It's like amazing, and I've never worked with him, and would love to. And I'm just now I just said that, but
but
I don't think he compromises.
No, I think it was, no, I agree with you 100%. I don't think David compromises at all. I don't think Nolan compromises, but they're playing in such different sandboxes. You're talking, Kubrick never compromised.
All men, by the way, just 3 men, just want to mention, but anyway, go on.
Right. But they don't generally compromise because they are who they are. Yeah. And that's the way they've built that thing about them that they can do things like that. I promise you that David did compromise on Alien 3, his first feature, which he got taken away by his studio. And then after, there's a whole long story. I mean, I could go on and on about, he never wanted to direct again. He wanted to say, I'm not going to go do features anymore. I'm just going to go back to commercials. And then 7 came around, and then he's like, I'm going to do it my way. And then after that, then he start writing his ticket. Same thing for Nolan and Kubrick. Kubrick wrote a ticket that nobody's ever written before. It's remarkable. Now I do have to ask you, because this is a story I heard that you told, and I think the audience would get a big kick out of it because I couldn't stop laughing. It's your Tom Cruise story. Please tell the audience the Tom Cruise story, because it's absolutely hilarious.
It's a good one. So, Tom and I did Born on the 4th of July together. So we kind of knew each other. And then Kevin did A Few Good Men with him. And I was 7 months pregnant on A Few Good Men. And back then they didn't have nice looking maternity clothes. This has nothing to do with the story, but just as a vision of what I look like. And so we would keep getting invited to like events with like Tom and Nicole, who he was with at the time. And Demi Moore was in the movie. And so Bruce came, and then Kevin, remind me, what's his last name? Kevin Pollak, thank you. And then throw in for a good measure, like Billy Crystal would come, and then Rob Reiner, and it was like, we got invited to cool things. We got invited over to Tom Cruise's house for dinner. It was a lovely meal. After dinner, we all retired to the library where the men smoked cigars and the women chatted. And I do what I do.
It's like Titanic.
I know. Well, what I tend to do is, and I couldn't drink, I couldn't smoke, because I was pregnant. So I was like looking at stuff, I looked at like a photo album of Tom and Nicole skydiving. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then like looking at the mantelpiece, there was like a little, a fireplace. And I was looking at the mantelpiece, the pictures. And then underneath the mantelpiece, weirdly, like oddly placed, was this little button. And I was like, I wonder what that is. And, maybe if I pressed it, like the door, like the thing would shift and like we'd go into some secret place. And so I just pressed the button and nothing happened. And I thought, that's a little unsettling that nothing happened. Maybe, I'm just going to mention it to Tom. So I tapped Tom on the shoulder, who's like mid-story, on something. And he turns around and I go, I just pressed that button under there. And he goes, you press that button? And I said, oh yeah, I did. I pressed that button. And he goes, that's the panic button. And I was like, oh my God. And he goes, why did you press that button? And I was like, I don't know. It was there. It was just there, and the cops came. Like 12 cop cars came. We were supposed to watch The Godfather 1 and 2. We had to postpone the screening because at first he just told his assistants to tell them he was fine. They wouldn't leave, understandably, until they saw Tom Cruise like in one piece. And so he's like, oh yeah, sorry, I have to go upstairs because someone pressed the panic button. And the cops are upstairs, they won't leave, so we got to hold on the movie. I mean, it was mortifying, and we didn't get invited back.
And by the way, what did Kevin do during this time?
He was like, what did you do? Why would you do that? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, what? I can't believe you did that. What were you thinking? He was just completely, like, on the one hand, mortified and shocked, but on the other hand, like, that's so you just do that kind of shit. Like, just, there's a button. I'm just going to press it. I'm a little impulsive.
I think you're a victim of your industry, which is the movie industry, and you've seen way too many movies. And when you hit that button, cool stuff happens in movies.
Right, of course.
They're just not a panic button. They're just something opens. You go into a secret passage. You find the Ark of the Covenant. There's things that happen. So I'm with you, Kyra.
Thank you.
I'm with you. I'm completely with you. I'm not sure if I would have touched the button, but boy, would I have got close.
Yeah, you'd be really curious.
I would.
But I'm bold. I just went right there.
But imagine if you hit the button and the door opened and you'd be like, oh, hell, what would you have done? You're like, Tom, the dungeon is visible for everybody.
Dungeon where you Oh my God. Yeah.
Anyway, but Kyra, where can people, or when is this coming out? I know you're at Tribeca right now. And what by the way, what was it like? What was it like getting that call? I always
Oh
love
my
asking.
God, it was so great. It was so great. Actually, it was kind of anticlimactic because I called Jane because I hadn't heard, and I know Jane Rosenthal, and I was like, this isn't right. You shouldn't call her. And then I was like, you know what? No stone unturned. Like, you got to do it. And I just wanted to tell her how passionate I was about, my hometown of New York and what I felt about the Tribeca Film Festival, just the way I feel like it was conceived as like New York coming back from 9/11. And I kind of feel like I'm reinventing myself. And like, I don't know, I just was like, I had this whole spiel to give her, and then I was like, hi, Jean, thank you so much for taking my call. I just wanted to just one more, just once again, tell you how passionate. She's like, oh, sweetie, you did such a great job. We absolutely want to have you. I'm so sorry it's taken us so long. And I was like, yeah, but I got a spiel. I got a whole thing. And about the Phoenix rising from the ashes. But anyway, no, I mean, I'm so grateful because the truth is, like, I think this movie can play in a theater. I think it should play in a theater. And it probably won't or may not due to the world that we live in. It'll, I would love to have a window of theatrical anyway, no matter what. So, but I think that people seeing it in an audience, it's a joyful, meaningful movie about love and loss at a time, and fighting for like what's here at a time when I feel like we're all feeling loss and wanting to fight for something, better and different and within our means and within our grasp to fight for. So I think it's an important movie. It feels like and it's fun and it's entertaining and it's romantic and it's about love and like fighting the good fight and grief. And I just think, God, who can't relate to that?
Absolutely. Well, I am so happy that you made the film. It's a fantastic film. I hope everyone goes out there and sees it. Kyra, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been so entertaining and so much fun. Thank you. And best of luck, continued success, and go out there and tell some more great stories. So I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
I want to thank Kyra so much for coming on the show and dropping her knowledge bombs on the tribe today. Thank you so much, Kyra. If you want to get links to anything we spoke about in this episode, head over to the show notes at bulletproofscreenwriting.tv/207. And if you haven't already, please head over to screenwritingpodcast.com, subscribe, and leave a good review for the show. If you love the show, guys, please share it, talk about it. Share it with all your friends. I want this information to get out there as much as possible on YouTube, on the podcast, on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you watch or listen to this. Please share it with as many people as possible. Thank you again so much for listening, guys. As always, keep on writing no matter what. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Bulletproof Screenwriting Podcast at bulletproofscreenwriting.tv.